I sat alone in my dark apartment staring at the ring box on the coffee table. 4 years with Leontine, and I thought I knew everything about her. She was the woman I wanted to spend my life with. Everything seemed perfect. But there were things I missed, words she said that I never truly heard. I learned the most painful lesson about love, and my teacher was none other than my own sister. Before I continue, let me know where you are watching from. If you believe in true love, hit that like button and subscribe to join me through this story. I met Leontine at a small coffee shop in Portland, Oregon, on a rainy Tuesday afternoon in October. She was sitting by the window, sketchbook in hand, completely lost in whatever she was drawing. I remember walking past her table and accidentally bumping into her chair. When she looked up, I saw the most genuine smile I had ever seen. No annoyance, no frustration, just warmth. She was a freelance artist who found beauty in simple things. Quiet moments, private spaces, the way sunlight hit a building at a certain hour. She told me once that her favorite thing in the world was painting alone in her apartment while rain tapped against the window. I should have paid more attention to that. I worked in marketing, big campaigns, flashy presentations, impressive numbers. I loved making things grand, memorable, impossible to ignore. Looking back, I realize how different we were in that way. But at the time, I thought those differences made us perfect for each other. She was my calm, and I was her excitement. At least, that is what I told myself. Our first year together was like something out of a movie. We took a road trip down the California coast, stopping at every small town that caught her eye. She would sketch the ocean while I watched her, completely mesmerized. We found a tiny apartment in Southeast Portland and made it our own. She painted one wall with a mural of mountains and stars. I hung up photos of our adventures. Every corner of that place told our story. We cooked together almost every night. She taught me her grandmother's pasta recipe, the one with fresh basil and homemade sauce. I taught her how to make the perfect grilled cheese, crispy on the outside, gooey in the middle. Those nights in our small kitchen laughing over burnt garlic and overcooked noodles were some of the happiest moments of my life. But there were things Leontine told me that I did not fully absorb. She mentioned once early in our relationship that she hated being the center of attention. She said it made her feel exposed, vulnerable, like everyone was judging her. I nodded and said I understood, but I did not really process what she meant. She told me about a memory from her childhood. When she was 12, her teacher made her stand in front of the entire class to present a project she was not prepared for. She froze, could not speak. The other kids laughed. She said she went home and cried for hours, and even now, decades later, the memory still made her chest tight. I held her hand when she told me that story, but I did not connect the dots. Multiple times throughout our 4 years, Leontine would say things like, "I love that it is just us," or "I do not need anyone else to know how happy we are." She would smile when we stayed in on Friday nights instead of going out with friends. She would light up when I surprised her with breakfast in bed, just the two of us, no audience. But I was so focused on what I thought love should look like that I missed what she was actually showing me. By our 4th year together, everyone started asking the question. My parents, my friends, even random coworkers. "When are you two getting married? You have been together forever. It is time to settle down." My father would call every Sunday and somehow work the topic into every conversation. He married my mother after just 2 years of dating, and he believed I was dragging my feet. My mother was gentler about it, but I could see the hope in her eyes every time Leontine came to family dinners. She wanted grandchildren. She wanted to see her son happy and committed. The pressure built slowly, like water filling a glass drop by drop. I started to feel like I needed to prove something. To my family, to our friends, maybe even to myself. I wanted everyone to know that I was serious about Leontine, that our relationship was real and permanent and worthy of celebration. So I decided to propose, and not just any proposal. The perfect proposal. The kind that would make everyone cry and applaud and talk about for years to come. I spent weeks planning every detail. I chose the most elegant restaurant in the city, a place with chandeliers and white tablecloths, and a wine list thicker than a novel. I reserved the private dining room and asked the manager if they could set up a large screen to display a slideshow of photos from our 4 years together. I hired a violinist to play our song, the one that was playing in the coffee shop the day we met. I coordinated with our closest friends to be there pretending it was just a coincidence. I wanted her to look around and see everyone she loved all gathered to witness this moment. The ring was a 2-carat diamond, the most expensive thing I had ever purchased. I spent 3 months' salary on it because I read somewhere that was what you were supposed to do. I imagined sliding it onto her finger while she cried happy tears, while our friends cheered, while the violinist played the final notes of our song. I was so proud of my plan, so certain that Leontine would be overwhelmed with joy. It never occurred to me to ask her what she actually wanted. I assumed I knew. 4 years together, and I thought I had her figured out. I did not realize I was designing a proposal for myself, not for her. The night arrived faster than I expected. I spent hours getting ready, changing my shirt 3 times before settling on a navy blue button-down that Leontine once said brought out my eyes. I shaved carefully, splashed on the cologne she had complimented months ago, and checked my pockets 17 times to make sure the ring box was still there. When I picked her up, she looked beautiful in a simple black dress, her hair falling naturally around her shoulders, the way she always wore it. But something in her expression made me pause. A flicker of uncertainty. "Why are we going somewhere so fancy on a random Thursday?" she asked as she got into the car. I smiled mysteriously. "You will see." She was quiet during the drive, looking out the window at the city lights. At one point, she reached over and took my hand. "Marcus," she said softly, "I do not really like surprises." "You know that, right?" I squeezed her hand reassuringly. "Trust me, you are going to love this." The restaurant was even more impressive than I remembered from my planning visits. Crystal chandeliers cast soft light across the room. The hostess greeted us by name and led us toward the private dining area. I watched Leontine take in the surroundings, her eyes widening slightly. Then she saw them. Our friends seated at tables throughout the room, all turning to smile at us. Her best friend from college, my buddies from work, couples we had double dated with over the years, all of them dressed up and grinning like they knew something she did not. Leontine stopped walking. Her hand tightened around mine. "Marcus," she whispered, her voice strained. "Why are all these people here? I just wanted tonight to be special," I said, guiding her forward. "Come on, our table is this way." Her face had gone pale. She leaned close to me as we walked. "I do not like this. There are too many people. I feel like everyone is staring at me." "They are just happy to see us," I said dismissively. "Relax, enjoy the night." I should have listened. I should have seen the fear in her eyes and understood what it meant, but I was so caught up in my vision, so focused on the moment I had choreographed in my head that I could not see what was right in front of me. Dinner was tense, though I tried to ignore it. Leontine barely touched her food. She gave short answers when friends asked her questions. She kept glancing toward the door like she was calculating escape routes. I told myself she was just overwhelmed in a good way, nervous about whatever she sensed was coming. Then the lights dimmed slightly and the violin music began. The large screen behind us flickered to life, displaying the first photo in my carefully curated slideshow. Leontine and me at the coffee shop where we met. Leontine and me on our road trip. Leontine and me in our apartment covered in paint from her mural project. Every person in the room turned to watch. I heard whispers of excitement, saw phones being pulled out to record. Leontine sat frozen in her chair. Her hands gripped the edge of the table so hard her knuckles went white. Her breathing had become shallow, rapid. I did not notice. I was already reaching for the ring box in my pocket. I stood up from my chair and walked around to her side of the table. The music swelled. The slideshow continued, image after image of our life together. I got down on one knee, opened the box, and looked up at the woman I loved. Leontine. I began, my voice carrying across the silent room. 4 years ago, you walked into my life and changed everything. You showed me what it means to love someone completely. You are my best friend, my partner, my everything. I want to spend the rest of my life making you as happy as you have made me. I held up the ring, watching it sparkle under the chandelier light. Will you marry me? The room held its breath. I could hear the violinist holding a long, anticipatory note. I could feel dozens of eyes fixed on us, waiting for the moment when she would cry and say yes and fall into my arms. But Leontine was not crying happy tears. Her eyes were wet, but her expression was not joy. It was something else entirely. Pain, panic, suffocation. She shook her head slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, then more firmly. I am sorry, Marcus, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I cannot. Before I could respond, before I could process what was happening, she stood up from the table and walked quickly toward the exit. Not running, but close. Her heels clicked against the hardwood floor in the terrible silence that had fallen over the room. The door closed behind her, and she was gone. I stayed on one knee for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. The ring box was still open in my hand. The violinist had stopped playing. The slideshow continued behind me, showing a photo of us kissing on New Year's Eve, mocking me with its frozen happiness. Someone coughed awkwardly. Someone else whispered to their partner. I could feel the weight of everyone's pity pressing down on me like a physical force. Slowly, I stood up. I closed the ring box and slid it back into my pocket. I tried to keep my face neutral, tried to pretend that my entire world had not just collapsed in front of an audience. I am sorry, I said to no one in particular. I guess dinner is over. I walked out of the restaurant without looking at anyone. I could not bear to see their expressions, the sympathy, the second-hand embarrassment. The relief that it was not them. Outside, the night air was cold against my face. I pulled out my phone and called Leontine. It rang and went to voicemail. I texted her. No response. I called again. Nothing. I drove home in a daze, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly they ached. The ring box sat in my pocket like a lead weight, a constant reminder of my spectacular failure. That night, I did not sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment over and over. Her face, her words, the sound of the door closing behind her. I kept asking myself the same question. What did I do wrong? The first week after the rejection was a blur of unanswered calls and desperate text messages. Leontine finally responded once, a brief message that said, I need time. Please give me space. I did not understand what that meant. Time for what? Space from what? We had been together for 4 years. Did she not love me anymore? Had everything between us been a lie? I stopped going to work. Called in sick for 3 days, then 4, then 5. My apartment became a reflection of my mental state. Dishes piled in the sink. Clothes scattered across the floor. Empty beer bottles manned up on the coffee table like soldiers keeping watch. My friends came by to check on me, but their attempts at comfort only made things worse. They did not know what to say. How do you console someone whose perfect proposal turned into a public humiliation? One of them, a guy named Derek from my office, tried to offer an explanation. Maybe she has someone else, he said, shrugging. Women do not just reject proposals for no reason. There has to be another guy. I wanted to argue with him, to defend Leontine, but the seed of doubt had been planted, and it began to grow. I started checking her social media obsessively, every photo, every like, every comment. And then about 10 days after the rejection, I saw something that made my stomach drop. She had posted a picture of herself at a coffee shop sitting across from a man I did not recognize. He was handsome, well-dressed, leaning toward her with an easy smile. The caption just said, "So good to catch up." My mind went to dark places immediately. Who was this guy? How long had she known him? Was this why she said no? Had she been seeing him behind my back the entire time? I did not consider other explanations. I did not think about the fact that Leontine had cousins, friends, colleagues I had never met. I just saw a ma with the woman who had rejected me, and I drew the worst possible conclusion. The hurt transformed into anger, a burning, consuming rage that felt almost good compared to the hollow sadness I had been drowning in. At least anger was active. At least it gave me something to do. I wrote her a long message, pages of accusations and bitterness. I called her a liar, a cheater, someone who had wasted 4 years of my life. I told her I had given her everything, and she had thrown it away for some random guy. I demanded answers, explanations, apologies. She did not respond. Her silence felt like confirmation. If she was innocent, why would she not defend herself? Why would she not explain who the man was? The fact that she said nothing convinced me that I was right. I started telling people, friends, family, anyone who would listen. Leontine had been unfaithful. That was why she rejected me. She had been stringing me along while secretly seeing someone else. The story spread quickly. Our mutual friends started taking sides. Some believed me. Others were more skeptical but did not push back. Within a week, the narrative was established. Marcus, the heartbroken victim. Leontine, the cheating girlfriend. 2 weeks after the proposal, I had lost almost 5 pounds. I could not eat. Everything tasted like cardboard. My boss pulled me aside and told me my performance was suffering, that I needed to get myself together or face consequences. I did not care. Nothing mattered anymore. I was convinced I had been betrayed by the person I loved most in the world, and the pain was overwhelming. I decided to erase her from my life completely. I started packing her things into boxes, the clothes she kept at my apartment, the art supplies in the corner, the photos on the walls. Everything that reminded me of her had to go. I was halfway through this purge when someone knocked on my door. It was Harper, my younger sister. She stood in the doorway taking in the disaster that was my apartment. The boxes, the bottles, the hollowed-out version of her brother standing in front of her. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past me into the living room. Harper had always been close with Leontine. They had bonded early in my relationship, becoming genuine friends independent of me. At family gatherings, they would disappear together for hours, talking about things I was never privy to. I used to find it endearing. Now it felt like a betrayal. "Did she send you?" I asked bitterly. "Are you here to defend her?" Harper turned to face me, her expression serious. "I am here to stop you from making the biggest mistake of your life." She forced me to sit down, clearing a space on the couch by pushing aside empty pizza boxes and crumpled tissues. Then she sat across from me and took a deep breath. "I talked to Leontine yesterday," she began. "She told me everything. And Marcus, you have got this all wrong." I scoffed. "Wrong, I saw the picture, Harper. She's already moved on to some new guy. She was probably seeing him the whole time we were together." Harper shook her head slowly, her eyes filled with something between frustration and pity. "That man in the photo is Derek, her cousin. He has been living in Germany for the past 5 years and just came back to the States last month. She was having coffee with family Marcus." That is it. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Her cousin. Not a new boyfriend, not evidence of cheating, just a relative she had not seen in years. But that does not explain why she said no. I argued weakly. If she loves me, why would she reject me like that? Harper leaned forward, her voice softening. Do you remember what Leontine told you about her childhood? About the time she froze in front of her class? I nodded slowly. The presentation, the laughter, the humiliation she still carried with her. Leontine has told me things over the past 4 years, Harper continued, about what she wants, what she needs, what makes her feel safe. And she has told you too, Marcus. You just were not listening. I felt my defenses crumbling. What are you talking about? She has always said she hates being the center of attention. She has told you multiple times that she does not like crowds, does not like public displays. She told me once that if she ever got engaged, she wanted it to be private, just the two people in love sharing a moment that belongs only to them. Harper paused, letting her words sink in. When you proposed in front of all those people with the cameras and the slideshow and the audience, you put her in her worst nightmare. You took the most important question of her life and turned it into a performance. She could not say yes to that, Marcus, not because she does not love you, but because saying yes would have meant betraying herself. I thought about all the times Leontine had said she preferred quiet nights in, all the times she had expressed discomfort at parties or events, all the times she had told me in her gentle way exactly what she needed from me, and I had ignored every single sign. There is something women call girl code, Harper said. But it is not some secret language or hidden test. It is actually really simple. When a woman tells you what she wants, she means it. She is not hinting, she is not playing games. She is communicating directly, and she is trusting you to hear her. Leontine told you who she was, over and over again, for 4 years. And you designed a proposal that was about you, what you wanted, what you thought would impress people. You never stopped to ask what she needed. I sat in silence, feeling the weight of Harper's words settle over me. Every memory I had of Leontine took on new meaning. Every conversation, every preference she had expressed, every moment where she had tried to show me who she really was. I had not been listening. I had been so busy planning the perfect proposal that I forgot to consider the person I was proposing to. She still loves you, Harper said quietly. She is devastated right now. She thinks she ruined everything, that she embarrassed you, that you hate her. She has been crying for 2 weeks straight. My heart clenched. She has been crying. Because of me, because she thinks she lost you. She said no to the proposal, not to you, but you have been so caught up in your own hurt that you could not see that. I looked down at my hands, shame washing over me. I had spent 2 weeks vilifying the woman I loved, telling everyone she was a cheater, sending her angry messages filled with accusations, all because I was too proud to consider that maybe, just maybe, I was the one who had made a mistake. What do I do? I asked, my voice cracking. Harper stood up and put her hand on my shoulder. You start by actually listening. For the first time in 4 years, I did not try to fix things immediately. I knew that after everything I had said and done, I needed to approach this carefully. Rushing in with another grand gesture would only prove that I still did not understand. Instead, I wrote her a letter, a real letter on paper written by hand. I did not make excuses or try to justify my actions. I simply apologized. For the proposal that ignored everything she had told me about herself, for the accusations I had made without giving her a chance to explain, for the 2 weeks of silence and anger when I should have been trying to understand. I told her I was not asking for forgiveness. I was not expecting her to take me back. I just wanted her to know that I finally heard her, even if it was too late. I left the letter at the coffee shop where we first met with the barista who knew us both. I asked him to give it to her if she came in. Then I waited. 3 days later, I got a text. Just 2 words, "I'm here." I drove to the coffee shop faster than I should have. When I walked in, she was sitting at the same table by the window where I had first seen her 4 years ago. She looked tired. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but she was there. I sat down across from her, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. "I am so sorry," I finally said, "for everything." She nodded slowly. "I got your letter. I meant every word." Leontine looked at me, really looked at me for the first time since that night at the restaurant. "I wanted to say yes," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You have to know that. I love you, Marcus. I have loved you for 4 years, but when you got down on that knee with all those people watching, I felt like I was 12 years old again, frozen, exposed, like everyone was waiting for me to perform, and if I did not do it right, they would all laugh." I reached across the table and took her hand. "I should have known," I said. "You told me so many times what you needed, and I did not listen. I was so focused on what I thought a proposal should look like that I forgot to think about what you would actually want." She squeezed my hand. "Why did you plan it that way?" I thought about the question for a long moment. Honestly, I think I wanted to prove something. To my family, to our friends, maybe to myself. I wanted everyone to see how much I loved you. But somewhere along the way, I made it about the audience instead of about us. Leontine smiled sadly. "I do not need an audience, Marcus. I just need you." We talked for hours that day. Really talked in a way we probably never had before. She told me about her fears, her needs, the things that made her feel safe and loved. And I listened, not just heard, but actually listened, letting her words sink in and reshape my understanding of who she was. We did not get back together that day. We agreed to take things slow, to rebuild the trust that had been damaged. I had a lot of work to do on myself, learning to put her needs alongside my own instead of assuming I knew what was best. 3 months later, I proposed again. This time there was no restaurant, no violin, no slideshow or audience, just the 2 of us on the balcony of our apartment, watching the sunset paint the Portland skyline in shades of orange and pink. I made her favorite pasta for dinner, the recipe her grandmother taught her, the one she had passed on to me. We ate together in comfortable silence, the kind that comes from truly knowing someone. After dinner, as we stood on the balcony with the city lights beginning to flicker on below us, I turned to her. "I am not going to make a speech," I said. "I am not going to try to impress you with fancy words or grand gestures. I just want to ask you something, and I want you to know that whatever you answer, I will understand." She looked at me, her eyes soft in the fading light. I got down on one knee holding the same ring that had sat unopened in my drawer for 3 months. "Leontine," I said, "I hear you now. Will you marry me?" She started crying, but this time they were happy tears, the kind I had imagined the first time before I understood what happiness really meant for her. "Yes," she said. "Yes." I slid the ring onto her finger, and she pulled me up into a kiss. No applause, no cameras, no audience, just 2 people in love sharing a moment that belonged only to them. Looking back, I realized the rejection was the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to confront something I had been avoiding for 4 years. The uncomfortable truth that loving someone is not about giving them what you think they should want. It is about listening to what they actually need. The girl code my sister told me about was not some complicated secret. It was the simplest thing in the world. When the person you love tells you something about themselves, believe them, trust them, honor who they are even when it is different from who you expected them to be. Leontine and I got married 6 months later. Small ceremony, immediate family only. We wrote our own vows and read them to each other in voices meant only for us. It was perfect, not because it was impressive or grand, but because it was true. Now, I want to ask you something. Think about the people you love. Are you really listening to them, or are you just hearing what you want to hear? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts. If this story touched you, please hit that like button. It helps more than you know. And if you are not already subscribed, join our community so you do not miss the next story. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes the reminder to listen comes at exactly the right time. Thank you for being here with me today. I hope this story stays with you, and I wish you all the courage to truly hear the people you love. Until next time, take care of each other.